So I'm taking a lot of heat in the video I posted as a submission to Discover Magazine's evolution contest. I'm taking a lot of heat for using the word creativity and the word creation in describing cosmic evolution, and I wanted to respond to that a little bit. I think, there's obviously a difference between personifying creativity by calling it a capital C creator and talking about the creative process immanent in nature itself. Though, I think that in this conflict between scientism and creationism, me personally, I don't really see either side as holding the entire truth. I think that the creationists are right that we live in a meaningful universe that has a purpose. And I think the science of evolution and cosmology and so forth is obviously right because it's based on empirical fact, and it's showing us that the universe is very old. At least 13.7 billion years old. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Life is 4 to 3.5 billion years old. And that obviously contradicts a literalist interpretation of Genesis, which would have it that the Earth is, about 6,000 years old. So, there's obviously something that science is correct about and the creationists are wrong about. But often when not scientists but lay people, and some scientists like Richard Dawkins, for example, when the lay person who is scientifically educated responds to the creationists, they'll often over-exaggerate what science has proven to us and attempt to use science as proof of the idea that all life on Earth is this merely mechanical process of random genetic mutation and non-random environmental selection. And, they will claim that that is completely explanatory of all life on Earth. I disagree with that. And in that sense, I think that the creationists are right to argue against that. I don't agree with the creationist idea that the story of Genesis is literally true. What I think is that evolution is a meaningful process of unfolding. It is creative, though it was not necessarily set in motion by a creator. And I think it's very short-sighted to think that Darwin's theory of variation under natural selection is completely explanatory of life or of the variety of species currently inhabiting the planet. Certainly it's true that nothing makes sense in biology but in light of evolution. However, there's more to evolution than just random gene mutation and selection by a pre-given environment. We've got to explain, or at least come to terms with, how it is possible that individual organisms are capable of self-organizing themselves. My body is made of matter, and yet it is alive. And to understand how that is possible, I think we've got to employ complexity theory. We've got to come to terms with self-organization, and what that means is that basically an organism is not a machine, because machines, at least in the sense in which I'm going to define them, machines are put together from the outside, piece by piece, and the parts have no formal relationship to one another. Whereas an organism grows itself from the inside out, and each of its organs are related to the other organs in such a way that they bring forth one another for the sake of the whole form of my complete organism. All of the organs, my heart, my liver, my kidneys, and so forth that make up my body, work together to produce themselves and to produce my whole organism. And they do this of themselves from the inside out. And that's completely different from a machine, which has to be put together by an outside agent. And so we can't understand organisms as machines. They're fundamentally different by definition. And what's interesting, as I've mentioned in a video a couple days ago, both the intelligent design camp and the neo-Darwinian camp both view organisms as machines. And the only difference is that the outside agency that constructs the organism for an intelligent designer is God or some intelligent designer, and for a neo-Darwinist, it's a pre-given environment. I reject that whole paradigm, the paradigm of an organism as a machine. Instead, I think that we have to understand organisms as autopoietic or self-producing systems. And what this requires of our perspective on nature as a whole is that we see the natural world as creative, not as created by a creator, but as inherently creative. And so matter itself, on a cosmic scale, is capable of emerging to higher degrees of order given enough time. And so when I use words like creativity, I'm referring to nature's intrinsic creativity, to a creativity that's immanent in the natural world itself, in matter itself. I don't see a problem with this in terms of the scientific facts that we have. Based on the scientific facts that we have, we still need to interpret these facts. And so when I enter this culture war between scientism and creationism, I don't take sides. I say yes to the creationists. The universe has a purpose and a meaning. And I say yes to the scientific crowd that evolution is true, that species weren't created as fixed forms 6,000 years ago. And I think there's room to take truths from both of these camps, which are at war with one another, to realize a grander truth, that we are participating in a 14 billion year process of cosmogenesis, of cosmic creation. And it doesn't require religious belief. We've got the empirical facts that show how this process takes place. And we, as human beings, are participating in it. And, as I said in my last video, Evolution in Under 2 Minutes, we've got to learn as a species, as a global community, how to participate in this cosmic process of creativity that's been going on long before us, and will continue to go on long after us if we aren't capable of learning how to participate. So our task is to come to an agreement with one another about the story that we're going to tell about our existence in this universe. Because whether we are scientifically minded or religiously minded, we tell stories. That's what human beings do. Scientific narrative, I think, is the future of our myth-making capacity as a species. But science or facts and religion or meaning, they must coexist because they mutually enhance one another. Facts and meaning, empirical evidence, and metaphysical interpretation, both of these must exist harmoniously. Otherwise, we are doomed to a perpetual state of confusion. And so, rather than see science and religion as enemies, we've got to find a way for them to coexist. And not just coexist, but, as I said, to mutually enhance one another. So that's my basic mission. And, I hope that, you can see where I'm coming from in that respect. So, thanks for listening.